would like to say that the fact that there is at this point no option for wired, when you've heard there's many people here that are electromagnetic sensitive, it's an actual environmental sensitivity recognized by the Human Rights Commission, the World Health Organization.
Accommodation.
And that requires accommodation. So I'd like to know how you plan on doing that with wireless smart meters. And also, there's many of us here that belong to a group, Citizens for Safe Technology, that are currently fighting to keep Wi-Fi out of schools, irradiating our children, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week throughout their education lifetime. I think it's a huge, giant step backwards if we are trying to keep Wi-Fi out of schools and then going and attaching wireless meters to our homes outside of their bedrooms where they sleep at night. Now, I'm not sure if you are aware of all of the evidence that's pouring through around the international scientific community on this issue. And if you aren't aware, shame on you, because you should be. If you're telling all of us you're going to put wireless meters on our homes, you should know what the science is saying. And many of us parents are fighting for our children and ourselves and our families. And I think it's deplorable that the smart meter green initiative would be slipped through in the Clean Energy Act without any public process. I think it's deplorable. We should be involved in the process. If we had, you would have heard all of these concerns, and maybe before contracts were signed, some agreements, some compromises, something could have been reached. But we're being told this is what's happening. And for that in itself, we are very, as you can see, angry. And our rights are being violated on many levels. And we want some answers, and it doesn't sound like we're getting real clear answers here this evening. The science is showing that it's long-term, continuous, low-level exposure, okay, that will lead to serious injury in your health in time. It doesn't yes, we understand a microwave oven and the levels that it operates are going to hurt you immediately. But what scientists are saying is you're getting a little bit of poison every day, for month after month, year after year, and what does that mean at the end of the line? Well, science is starting to show what it means at the end of the line. And I don't think any of us here are willing to sacrifice our health and well-being so that BC Hydro can make more money. And really, I think the question has been raised, is it really saving energy? Other counties, other states, Texas, Illinois, there's lots of other states that are saying, no way. Not until we have all the answers, because so far what we're seeing doesn't jive, no way.
A couple of things I want to touch on just from what I've heard tonight. I do have a radio frequency radiation meter. I'm an electrician. I've been measuring for electromagnetic radiation for a number of years. And I think just touching on this topic that you're going to have to move away in order to get below an exposure level that would be deemed to be safe by authorities that we can trust, like the International Institute of Biobiology, or the writers of the Bioinitiative report that showed with 2,000 studies that radiofrequency radiation at exposure levels well below which has been allowed by the federal government does cause negative health consequences. If your home is wired correctly by the Canadian Electrical Code, if you do not have any wireless technology in your house, that's your standard cordless telephones, cellular phones, baby monitors and such. And if you're not in the proximity of a cellular phone transmitter outside, your home is safe, and it falls well below what is deemed to be safe by authorities that really know what they're talking about. That when they're talking about biological effects and negative health effects, these people are talking about what's happening to the biology within people's bodies. The federal government talks about heating your tissue, and I think we probably touched on that. But don't move away, folks. Just keep fighting for your rights, and you can have a safe place to live. I just want to touch on a couple more things. I have measured, by the way, a smart meter in Nelson, BC. I just happened to come across it on my holidays, and the lady up here referred to that measurement. And it does transmit, it was transmitting every 2.5 minutes, and it's microbursts of energy. And those microbursts of energy are extremely high. When I was within 10 feet of the meter outside, it was spiking my meter. So to let you know, your children cannot play in your yards when these things are working. Keep your kids and your pets out of your yards, because it was transmitting. That's factual. I have the evidence myself. If you wanted to declare that I'm not telling you the truth, to go ahead. But it does transmit that way. Now, I'm not sure what type of technology you guys are heading for, because I haven't measured it. And I'm very interested in finding out what you have. Here, I just want to point out, though, that when you're saying these measurements on average are 1 minute a day or 2 minutes a day, we're talking about these microbursts of energy that might be only a few milliseconds. Add them all up for the whole day, it's only transmitting for a couple of minutes. But every 2.5 minutes, your body's being smacked with a very powerful form of electromagnetic radiation. That's the truth, and those are the facts. So unless you change that, unless you have different technology what I've measured, that's what we're come to expect. Really, in just general terms, this is a rip-off. The public is being ripped off. You folks are being ripped off. Because we all share the same biology. You know, people that are electrically sensitive, and I see them quite often, and they are suffering. And my heart goes out to them. But they are like the canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
We have to listen to what they are saying. We are at a point in our development, particularly with electricity, as we ramp up our exposures over the last 20 or 30 years with cellular telephones and with all sorts of wireless technology inside the home and such, we are reaching a threshold where we are going to see a catastrophic collapse.
Right.
And this is what we're courting. This fellow here is a medical doctor. I hope you learned some things here tonight.
He's telling us to go live.
My medical doctor is a wonderful guy. I really love him, and he's really great. He's really helped me out, but he doesn't know anything about this topic, and he admits to that. Because we don't have experts that will stand up and defend the public. Now, if you guys really want to be fair, you should have a full public hearing on this. Allow the public to come. Allow experts to speak. Let's bring in the real independent experts that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Let them speak. And Hydro should not make any decisions whatsoever until you've heard the complete analysis.
That's right.
And I'm urging you to do that.
Hello and welcome to Face to Face. Our guest today is Walter McGuinness, and we're going to be talking about actually a very important subject. And that subject is the new smart meters, or as I like to call them, stupid meters, that BC Hydro is planning to put into every house in the province, starting maybe now, I don't know. What happened is this. In May of 2010, the provincial Liberal government passed a law making BC Hydro replace all the old electrical meters that are in everybody's home with what they call a new smart meter. So Walter, let's start with why exactly did the government pass this law telling BC Hydro to put a new meter into everybody's home?
Well, I won't take the government's line on it. I want to tell you what I think why they're doing it. Of course, they implemented the Clean Energy Act last May, and part of in that act was the requirement for BC Hydro to replace all the existing hydro meters with the new technology that was supposed to monitor consumption more accurately and a more closely based upon time of consumption. And it was all under the guise of conserving energy. No research has ever shown, by the way, that this technology actually does save energy, just so you know that, other than what hydro has produced. But there's no real strong data to show that it's actually saved energy. What we have found in other jurisdictions, particularly in California, is that hydro rates have gone up quite significantly as a result of this new technology.
So what we see then is a decision made to put a so-called smart meter into everybody's home at a cost, by the way, folks, of $1 billion. And you may not know this because it's being kept quite secret by our province's corporate media, which suggests, of course, that they don't want us really talking about this or knowing about it. So they're in the game as well. We don't even know why. They say it's to save energy or to make us save energy, but there's no evidence, you say, that actually
No, I
happens.
mean, there's three key issues, and each of them are strong enough on their own to warrant scrapping the program. You know, let's face it, any measurement based upon rational decision making, this is not a good deal for British Columbians. It's a good deal if you happen to be a member of BC Hydro or a member of Accenture or some people within the provincial government. But for the ratepayers, it's a very, very bad deal. Now, we have three major areas that we're concerned about. One, of course, is just gouging consumers. And that's been shown that this is what's going to happen. This has happened in other jurisdictions. There's also a major, major issue about the security of the information that's being collected by the meters themselves. The meters are wireless technology, so they are collecting and transferring information pertaining to your consumption wirelessly, which is not a secure way to transmit information. Also, that information, once it does get to the command control center, is being held and processed, and the citizens have very little control over how that information is being used and who it could be sold to and how that could be used for marketing. So, you know, we have issues around that. And also we have issues around in the security category of what exactly are the capabilities of these meters, what are they actually able to measure other than time of consumption. The manufacturers do not have to disclose to the public the technology that they're using. So we do not know to what degree our activities are being monitored in the building. Now, and above all, is issues around health. And as you know, from my background and my profession, I've been looking at issues around the human exposure to radio frequency radiation for many years. And we're looking at the level of exposure that the public are going to be have to deal with because right now every house in the country is essentially going to have a cellular phone attached to their building, and that cellular phone technology is capable of operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've done testing to look at where some of this technology has been installed, and it does indeed work all day, every day. So combine these three big issues together, Jack. If you
And
look,
the three big issues again are the cost.
costs.
Of at least $1 billion.
It's fundamentally it's a ripoff. The public's going to pay a lot of money for this. They're paying to have the meters installed, and then they're going to pay exorbitant rates because of the way these meters are monitoring electricity. And then we get into the issues around public health, which are not being correctly addressed, and certainly are not being addressed in a scientific fashion. This is where the world of spin and information control collides with reality. And reality is that this type of radiation does have a biological impact, and for the most part, it's negative. And the reality is the public, some of the members of the public have been taking steps to protect themselves by not using cellular telephones or wireless internet or routers and things in their houses. But now it's mandated they have to attach wireless technology onto their house. Now, in a residential setting, hydrometers can be placed right outside the area of a sleeping area in a house. Many times you'll see that happen. And the radiation does enter into that part of the building. But with the new technology, that wireless signal, what's known as radio frequency radiation, penetrates even further into the building, and it presents a whole new range of biological impacts that the old magnetic meters didn't have. So we have a situation where we're worsening a bad situation. So all combined, we just don't have a good reason to get into this, and we just have a whole lot of reasons to stay away from this at this point.
Is this happening in BC now? Have they already started putting these meters in?
Well, they've made the decision to all every building, every residence in every building in British Columbia that has a meter is going to be swapped out in the next 2 or 3 years with this new technology. Now, the Gulf Islands, Salt Spring in the Gulf Islands and the Richmond area, the first area that's going to see the implementation of the program, that has been the contract to swap out those meters has already been rewarded. We're going to start seeing those meters going in this summer in July and August, and so the program is going ahead full steam right now, and we're just doing everything we can to let the public know that's not a good idea.
When you say swapped out, you mean they're going to take out the old electricity meter that's in everybody's home, and replace it with what they call a smart meter. Yeah,
and they say that the old meters were unreliable, the magnetic meters, and you know, I'm an electrician, and I have seen a lot of these meters in my lifetime. And I must have seen the odd one that was malfunctioning, but I can't remember. So, I mean, we're talking about one of the most stable types of equipment you ever could witness. This is like a Volvo in the automobile world, and you couldn't get a better type of technology. It's so sound, it's very low tech, and presents very little impact in the environment other than the magnetic field. And so you really can't go wrong with this old technology. It was doing the job, basically. But since the new technology has arrived, it appears that all of a sudden they have problems with the old meters and they're registering incorrectly. But again, that has not been shown out in any data that's been presented to us that we can say, oh yeah, there is a problem. We have never seen that.
Now, BC isn't the first place that these meters are being installed. I know you've said it's already happened or happening in California, possibly in Europe. Maybe you can tell us something about the situations there.
Well, we're most aware of what's happening in California because we're getting in communication with them, and they're hitting the news every day. I mean, there's folks in California fighting tooth and nail not to have it. Some communities, some counties have banned smart meters. We'll have to see where that all goes because they have the jurisdiction to actually ban them, but they're blocking roads. They're trying to stop this stuff from going in.
I'm just going to interrupt you here because once again we see where is our media? I don't know this. Do any of you know this? That in California they're fighting against these smart meters. No, we don't know it because the media won't report it. And the media doesn't report it because they don't want us to know. Now the question is, why doesn't the media want us to know? What's their role, along with the government and BC Hydro, in this, I don't know what to call it, corrupt scam or what name to give it, undemocratic?
Well, that's a good question, Jack. I mean, I wish I could answer it and not malign anyone because obviously the old, let's call them the Gordon Campbell Liberals, because that seems to be a different party than the Christy Clark Liberals, or they seem to be trying to distance themselves from a lot of these policies. They really had a very, very close association, let's say, with members of BC Hydro and of Accenture, and even some of the contracts that were rewarded for installing the new meters have appearances of improprieties, let's say, that show that some people associated with the Liberal Party might be benefiting. So I mean, I guess the old line is follow the money. There's a lot of money being thrown around here. There's a lot of money to be made. And I think that's one motivation. Also, there's the motivation around, for instance, being able to control hydro rates, have more of an alibi, let's say, for raising rates, blaming consumers for not doing their washing in the middle of the night or doing their washing or using electricity at low periods when you're charged less. So, they basically expect you to get up in the middle of the night and vacuum or something to save power. Well, in the real world, we know that doesn't happen. People have busy lives and schedules, and they're not carefully monitoring when they're consuming electricity. So, the net effect is, of course, they're just going to pay more money for the electricity. So, I mean, if you just talk in economic terms, I think it's good enough for me to say, okay, this seems to be the primary motivator for them to go ahead.
Are you suggesting, and I'm starting to get this feeling that maybe the result of all of this is that electricity rates are going to go up during like prime time hours, and we are going to be told it's going to be monitored from now on, folks, every minute of the day, and if you dare to use electricity during the day, you're going to be paying a lot more, so you have to start using it at night to try to force our consumption down, which isn't a bad thing. Our consumption should be down, but it won't change the consumption. It'll just change the time of consumption. And I guess they'll sell our electricity off to the States during those prime hours. Is that part of what this is all about?
I think you had an economist on a few weeks ago that might have been able to answer questions like that better than me. But I think, you have issues. I mean, let's face it, there's a whole lot of questions. There's pages and pages of unanswered questions about why they're doing this. It only leaves us to speculate. I mean, as a citizen, I'm looking at higher rates for electricity. As you say, we should be conserving, and charging more for electricity is one way to, to prompt people to use less electricity. And on the face of it, you say that generally seems to be like a good idea. But the way they're implementing this, it's costing billions of dollars, Jack. I mean, the money that they're spending, the amount of kilowatt hours that have to be saved in order to make up for all this expenditure, I mean, it does not add up. And that's what we're faced with, is asking, well, if it doesn't add up economically, well, what are the other motivations? And then there's some very serious issues that many, many people are concerned about with the surveillance capabilities of this technology. Now, they tell you what they could do. They say they can monitor electricity, what time of day and all that. But you have to wonder, well, a cell phone, you can take pictures with it. You can record audio with it. A cell phone has a lot of capabilities.
And part of this technology includes a cell phone.
Well, what's inside the meter is basically like a cell phone. It's the same type of technology. But what I'm saying is that you can build in so many things into the very, very small packages for surveillance. And for instance, if you go to the Gap and they decide to tag your shirt with a microchip, every time you walk past your hydrometer, the hydrometer goes, oh, there goes the Gap shirt, there goes the shoes from Eddie Bauer or whatever. And, they could do that so easily, monitoring activity of what's being purchased. Now, and who's going to be controlling that information, Jack? I mean, that's just the tip of it. If you want to get to conspiracy theories, you can go way off on this one. There's lots of ways to go on it. But we should all be asking the question, what the fundamental rights of human beings are. What are our rights in our homes? What are our rights for privacy? I think this definitely is challenges the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It really fundamentally challenges what we have, our rights of what we should be doing in our own homes and in privacy behind our own walls. I mean, there's a lot of things being addressed here that a lot of questions come up here that have a lot no answers for.
Can people say, I don't want one, I just want to keep the old meter that's worked for the last 100 years?
No. A hydro can spin around and use a lot of fancy words and tell you how they're consulting and all the rest. But the bottom line is you're getting one unless we stop them from implementing the program. Now, I'm an electrician, and I can't tell people to tamper with anything that BC Hydro's equipment. But there are people who do have strategies on how to limit hydro's accessibility to this equipment that's legal. And you might want to go on the internet, maybe go to the emr.bc.ca website. It might be discussed on there. But really, we're down to that point, really, where if we're going to stop this program, and it's a juggernaut, this thing is coming down on us just full steam ahead, citizens going to have to take action. And it is getting down to that. That's why I'm here today, because I'm asking citizens to get involved, to look at this issue carefully, to realize that this is just not the sort of society that we want to live in, that these decisions are being made in an undemocratic fashion, and that, you know, if we really want to shape our future in a safe manner and in a manner that's fair, we shouldn't have this technology on the side of our houses.
Now, I think the group you're part of involving on this issue is called Power to the People.
Well, about a month ago, we started a program called Power to the People, Stop the Smart Meters program. And basically, it's just amalgamation of a whole bunch of groups in British Columbia that are all opposed to it. And we're just, we're just ramping up right now, we're having public meetings. We're having another meeting tomorrow night. We met last week about 10 days ago, and we had good turnout and a lot of people concerned about the issues and willing to take some action. And we have to get into gear right now, because if we don't, as you say, it appears that the mainstream media doesn't seem to want to talk too much about this, and particularly when you look at the enormity of the impact on British Columbia. You've seen it in The Sun and the other papers a bit, but again, just that lack of coverage, really, to me, it's not fair to the public. The public should have a chance to have access to this information, particularly with the criticisms of the program. I mean, I keep on using the same phrases over and over again, but in a free and democratic society, these are the sort of things that occur, where criticism is leveled at government programs, and they have to pass muster. They have to actually be able to explain these situations, and not just with industry-generated data. Let's say, the things should be measured independently. Is power consumption really saved? Let's look at a real independent study. They've never provided that to us. They provided their own in-house work, which is what it is. It may be accurate, but I don't think one should completely rely on information from a biased source. So, I mean, we're really into an era right now of, if it isn't this issue with the smart meters, Jack, we've seen the run-of-the-river program of the last 10 years and the devastation to the environment and to the ecology of this province, irreparable damage to so many rivers. We're now forced to buy power from General Electric, and these guys have built these projects at several times the rate that we can sell it at. I mean, this is not good business.
And when you talk about run-of-river, a lot of people don't know much about that, because once again, there was virtually no coverage in the media. The media doesn't cover these issues because they don't want you knowing about them. Just look at the media for a couple of days. Read your newspaper, listen to the radio, watch TV, whatever you do, and follow the news for a couple of days, and ask yourself why there's no mention of issues like run-of-river or this stupid meter program. Why doesn't the media want you to know about this? They don't want you to know because they are part of the game. And the game is to do whatever it is that big business wants to do to us. And I guess the next step are these smart meters.
Well, I did a little bit of research on Arthur Andersen Associates, and they were the accountants for.
Maybe you can just mention how Arthur Andersen ties.
This story unfolds in a very interesting fashion. Let's say if you back up 10 or 15 years, looking at Arthur Andersen Associates, they were the accountants for a company by the name of Enron. And Enron was a huge energy purchasing and reselling of energy in the United States.
Possibly one of the largest frauds that ever took place.
That's
in the
right.
United
It was a bit of a
States.
Ponzi scheme. It was a result of the deregulation by the Reagan administration in the 80s. So I mean, we're going back 20, 30 years to get a picture of how we got to this point in British Columbia. We have Arthur Andersen Associates, who more or less invented Enron. They were the guys that did the tricky bookkeeping that enabled large banks and large corporate interests to make millions and millions of dollars off Enron.
Billions, really.
Billions, perhaps, and all the mums and pops lost all their retirement savings. So all that money that was lost by citizens was won over, and the profits were for large interests, including Canadian banks. Now, Arthur Andersen Associates, after the Enron scandal, they had to change their name because they just basically their name was tainted, so they changed their name to Accenture. Now, they're still could be the largest public relations firm in the world. The assets are enormous, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're just a massive corporation, and they're affiliated with most of the Fortune 500 corporations in the world. They are the elite of the elites. Anyways, so the Accenture arrives in British Columbia, but almost 17 years ago now. They took over the operations of BC Hydro.
Now, when you say that, you mean the Gordon Campbell Liberal government hired or whatever Accenture to run a part of BC Hydro.
So they arrived. The short story is they use the same bookkeeping methods that they used with Enron that drove Enron into the ground. They use the same basic business model of dividing up BC Hydro into bits and pieces. They made decisions like purchasing this power from these large corporations that were building these run-of-river projects, which is an economic fiasco, which is just a complete and absolute, it's a joke for anyone that has any common sense. But it makes sense, apparently, if we only could have explained to us properly. But in the end, what we have is Accenture, who's using the same model as they used with Enron to pick apart BC Hydro, to fragment it, to take off everything that's profitable from this corporation. And now they're they're into their tenure, and basically they're just trying to split Hydro up and sell off bits of the carcass to their friends, including perhaps some people who made the original decisions to bring them in. So I mean, there's a lot of scandal to go around there, and if you don't want to get outraged by anything else, that's enough of a reason. And I tell you, Jack, if the media ran this story, the BC Liberal Party would be toast.
Which is exactly the reason it seems that the media won't run the story.
I'm firmly a believer, and I mean, you're trying to do these interviews, and you're trying to be fair and square and all that. I really would love to be not to say things unkind about the government, and especially particularly about the Liberals, but man, it's so irksome to see them make these decisions and then say, oh, we are the managers, the money managers. You have to go with a conservative agenda and a conservative ideology to properly control and manage this economy. There's only one problem with that, is it never worked. We have gone with conservative ideology. We've gone with the economists. We've done everything they've told us to do. And every 5 or 6 years, we have this major crash. I don't know if anybody noticed that. And we have to spin around and find a few $100 billion or trillions or whatever it takes to bail these guys out. Those loans are all still on the books. They're never going to get paid back. In the United States, we're tied into the U.S. economy, like it or not. Canada can sort of be on the sidelines a little bit and have an appearance that our economy is fairly strong. Man, we're just living on eggshells, really, and this could crack any moment. And but the thing is that it all boils down to that ideology that these so-called conservative money managers are the way to go, and it just doesn't pan out. It just doesn't pan out in reality.
Now that Christy Clark is our premier, has anything changed? She's got the family first agenda we keep hearing, but I don't think that these smart meters are family first. So is she, I mean, because the whole thing can still be stopped, is she going to stop it?
Well, okay, you could have Christy Clark being unaware of the issues truly. You could have a situation where Rich Coleman, the Minister of Energy, could be unaware of the issues, but not likely. These programs and policies, Christy Clark has been out of the cabinet for a number of years. I don't know how closely she would be associated with it, but many, many people within the Liberal Party sat in cabinet and made these decisions to go down this road long ago. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, particularly on the economic side of it. It's just simply does not make any sense economically, or it's a ripoff for the British Columbians. Now, in the world of politics, we're always looking for allies, and we're particularly trying to stop these things. So if you look around, you say, okay, the provincial Green Party is a no-show on this issue. And that's, that's all I can say about them, is that they're irrelevant. That's probably the worst thing you could ever say about a party. We have, of course, the Liberals, between the Christy Clark Liberals and the Gordon Campbell Liberals, it's not much difference. There's a little bit of window dressing going on, but if they proceed, then we're not seeing any difference. And believe me, there's one party that's going to be very happy about that, is the NDP, because the Liberals will not survive this one.
What's the NDP's position on the smart
meters? The official party position is that they're opposed to the smart meter program and they want to scrap it. All the NDP candidates for the leadership supported that, and they're certainly aware of the economic issues. And so, this is how it stands right now. If you look federally, now we had a wonderful thing happen to us in British Columbia in the last federal election, is we got a federal Green Party candidate elected in Saanich and the Islands by the name of Elizabeth May, and she just happens to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada. And Elizabeth May has come out very firmly in support of us and protecting the public health from electromagnetic radiation. She's issued press releases to that effect, and also there's party policy that really does support us. So there's lots to be gained there. And we can say, okay, if you look at these politicians that are willing to look at the issues fairly and become aware, we almost always win them over. And that's why I'm saying there's a possibility there's not an awareness within the NDP, because they themselves do not support or acknowledge the negative health effects associated with the electromagnetic radiation in general and radio frequency radiation such as that emitted from smart meters. But nevertheless, they don't want the program. And if for no other reason than for the economic issues, that's good enough for us. But getting into the health issues is another whole level of concern, profound concern it should be for the public's health. We just do not have protection in that area, and we just simply have to take some pretty strong steps if we're going to find some way of curbing this program from happening.
Now, I attended a meeting, you were at it as well, that BC Hydro ran about this, I guess a few months ago. And I remember quite clearly the lady from BC Hydro said that these smart meters only operate for 1 or 2 minutes a day, so obviously there's nothing to be concerned about. Can you respond to that? Because I think that is one of their lines. These things don't operate.
Well, this is a technology that can be programmed to do anything basically you want. It could, in fact, operate just 1 minute a day, once a week, or any way they wanted to. But that's not the way they've been set up. And I did come across a meter when I was in Nelson, which I tested out of curiosity. Lo and behold, it was operating all day, every day. It sends out micropulses of information every 3 minutes for just fractions of a second. Now, the sophistry in this is that, yeah, it only operates a couple of minutes a day on average,
in total.
Well, they call it on average because that's, you could use those sort of language, but it should be said in total. And if you add up all these microbursts over all day, it's only 2 or 3 minutes. So it's true, but the thing does pump out a very powerful signal every 3 minutes that penetrates the buildings, that impacts and everybody that lives in those houses, and particularly outside, it certainly does.
So the kids playing in the backyard?
Well, anybody within the whole region is irradiated.
Because there's dozens of them on all of your neighbors' houses as well.
See, okay, let's look at this, how the system works, because and get away from the politics a little bit. What you have is a hydrometer mounted on the side of your house. Inside of that meter is this technology that monitors consumption by the second. Now, it also can communicate with all the smart appliances in your house. So in the future, all appliances that you're going to be purchasing will also have cell phone type technology, the electric range, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the dryer, the clothes washer. All the appliances are going to have technology. When you turn them on, it's going to send a little signal out to a little message into your meter outside and say, hey, we're on, we're drying the clothes right now. It collects that data, and however often they want it to, they'll send that information wirelessly back to command and control. Now, that network outside the house is a WiMAX system. Basically, it works on the same principle as, say, a cellular phone network. So you have another whole blanket of radiation that's being placed on these communities at a different frequency. So all the communities are affected that way, including all the natural environment, including the bees. And but inside the house, you're going to have all these appliances turning on and calling the meter outside. So you're going to have lots of radio frequency radiation being launched into the environment. And by the way, this is where a lot of the research sort of falls down, particularly the corporate research, is that they don't take into account all these other devices that will be upping the level of radiation in the environment, and perhaps even above what is actually allowed by the authorities at the moment, perhaps even higher exposure levels than the very lax regulations that are now in place.
Well, when I went to that hydro meeting and the lady from Hydro said it only operates 2 minutes a day, I thought, oh, well, that's not too bad, 2 minutes a day. But when you later at that same meeting explained what really happens, that it sends out a powerful 1 fraction of a second long pulse every few minutes, well, that puts the whole thing into quite a different light. And, I don't like it when BC Hydro, which is supposed to be a Crown corporation owned by us, is not telling us the truth. I mean, we deserve better from our politicians and Crown corporations.
Because of my background, because I've been a tester for electromagnetic radiation for all these years, we've looked at the technology closely. It's not only the radio frequency radiation emitted from the meter that's of concern. Some researchers say that even of greater concern for exposure is what's called the switch mode power supplies that are inside the meters themselves. And basically, you have, coming to your house, you have 240 volts alternating current. That's what we all use for everything. But in order to make the meter work, they have to transform that and invert that into around 12 volts DC. Now that's all done digitally, and what happens in the process is that you cause a lot of high voltage spikes and transients. And this is otherwise known as dirty electricity, and there's a whole body of scientific literature on the negative health effects associated with exposure to dirty electricity. Basically what that is when in your house, if everything was working well and you had AC power in your house, the area that of concern is quite close to the conductors if it's a magnetic field. Well, now we have a issue of where we have these high voltage spikes and transients that basically jump off the wire and onto your body. And there's research to show that that is negatively impacting the public's health. So we have these two major issues of exposure, two different types of exposure caused by these meters. And basically, there hasn't been any long-term studies because the technology is fairly new. There's only the research looking at the different types of exposures. And all that research shows harm pretty well. So, I mean, we're in a situation where all the evidence is showing that it's harmful, but they're still going ahead and doing it. And that's of great concern, I think.
Has there been any places around the world that have banned or stopped this use of wireless technology?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, if you're talking about wireless, if you're talking about radio frequency radiation, basically, you can talk about different frequencies and different types of usages, but if you look at basically, let's say, wireless routers in homes and schools, wireless internet routers, you talk about cordless telephones, your standard DECT phones everybody has in their homes, cellular telephones, baby monitors. It's all generally the same type of technology and up around the same frequency ranges. And some of this technology has been around long enough that we know that it's detrimental to health. And the thing that always sticks out in my mind is that all this research that's done basically by industry, it's very hard to glean out any hard data that would show that there is harm because they're so very careful not to allow it in. But in the Interphone study that was recently released in Europe, it was over several years, the research was done about cell phone use. They found that, for instance, if you were under the age of 18 and you use a cellular telephone for 1/2 hour a day, and if you start your usage before the age of 18 and you use it for half an hour a day, 30 minutes, which is not that much really, is it? By the age of 28, you're over 6 times as likely to have a brain tumor. So it's astounding. The risk factor jumps over 6 times. But the interesting thing about that study was that in the conclusions, it was that there was nothing, basically they said that there was no association between the use of cell phones and brain tumors, except in one small subset. Well, the subset was the people the children who were under 18. And the thing is that is astonishing. If you have that type of risk factor in any other toxic agent in our environment, the government would be all over that. But apparently it's not strong enough evidence for the government to take action. And again, it just flies in the face of good common sense and reason. This just does not make sense to particularly allow our young children to be exposed to that. Now, the thing is, why I'm getting into that is that the radiation from that cell phone really isn't that much different from what's going to be emitted from these smart meters. The duration of exposure is going to be different. The proximity to the meter is going to be different. There's going to be different parameters, but fundamentally, it's not that much different, particularly when a lot of research shows that it's not necessary to have a long exposure to cause very detrimental health effects, nor do you necessarily have to have a very powerful exposure. Now, we're just playing with fire here. We're just playing with technology that hasn't been proven to be safe and has a lot of indications that it's unsafe, and we have this unwillingness by our governments and particularly with our medical health professionals and the chief medical health officer and such, to look seriously at this issue. They are bound and determined to march on a very, very narrow line, and they're determined not to look sideways. They're saying there's no health effects. They're saying it's like the Flat Earth Society. Go outside, Jack, look around. The Earth is flat. Just look. It's not round. And that's the reasoning they're using. That's as much as they're looking. They're using I would say it would be a childish approach, but I wouldn't want to insult children because it doesn't make any sense. And we're locked into the struggle right now, and it's very, very serious. And that's what got me out here today. That's what mobilizing people right now. Citizens have to take extra steps right now. We're not getting the representation from our elected officials. We're not being protected by the mainstream medical professions. We have to step beyond them, and we have to reject this type of technology. And there's where the action plan has to start. Is we have to impress upon people that want to run for office that if you want to get elected, guess what? Oppose this technology.
So once again, the federal leader of the Green Party, recently elected here in Saanich, opposes this kind of technology.
Yes.
The NDP, the official position of the provincial NDP under Adrian Dix, is to oppose the installation of these smart meters.
That's correct.
The Liberal government is going ahead. So the smart meters are coming, and it's probably starting very, very soon. They'll be in action. How do people get in touch with your group?
Well, there's hopefully you'll run an address. I'm the co-chairman of the Electromagnetic Radiation Health Alliance of British Columbia, and we have a website. It's easy to remember. It's EMRABC, EMRABC.ca. You can go on the website. You're going to find articles and links on this topic. Locally, I'd like people to email locally to an email address that I have. It's emf@islandnet.com.
So emf@islandnet.com.
That's correct. I hope that we'll have that at the end of the show. And what I want people that are watching, I want people to come out and help us out here. You know, we got a couple of months to do something. And you know, the same sentiment I think that, for instance, got Elizabeth May elected in Saanich in the Islands was a whole new group of people that got engaged. It was a very exciting thing to see happen. And I think the public has to rise up. Don't sit on your couches, folks. If you don't think you're not comfortable with this, rise up, give us a hand. There's everything we're doing is backed with scientific data. You'll see that we're very, very concerned with the proper procedures. We're engaged with the government. We're writing our letters. We're asking for meetings. We're doing all the right things, but we're just not getting to them. So now we have to, I think, ramp up our activities, and we have to do something to impress upon this government that this is just a bad idea.
Okay. And I think one thing your group wants also is public hearings on this whole issue.
That's correct. You know, BC Utilities Commission was taken out of the picture by the Gordon Campbell Liberals with the Clean Energy Act, and basically any issues pertaining to smart meters cannot be reviewed by the BC Utilities Commission, which should be so suspect for anybody that's thinking about it. Why was the BC Utilities Commission, our watchdog, removed from the process?
And why don't we even know about it?
Well, hardly know about it. The thing is this: we want the BC Hydro to hold formal public hearings. That's number one. Formal public hearings, not these open houses that we attend and they kind of give us a bit of information and none of it's very accurate. We need questions on the record, answers on the record, in which the public has a clear picture of what this program's about. If that does not occur and the public is not heard properly and these answers are not answered properly, I think we should have a full commission, a governmental commission, to simply just halt the program and say, okay, you guys are not giving us the answers. We have to review this. There's too many red flags here. You know, it just does not add up, what they're saying and what's happening in reality. And if Hydro was willing to hold formal public hearings, I'm sure we'd love to go out and participate. So, and if they want to be fair, I think they should do that.
Well, folks, so the smart meters are coming and they don't sound too smart. There are, I think, definite health risks. And there are certainly definite problems with the cost. $1 billion being spent on a project that is really completely unnecessary. And they're forcing it down our throats, whether you want it or not. They want to put it on your house. So Walter's call here for official public hearings makes a lot of sense, and it's up to all of us. So please call your local MLA, no matter what party they're in. Call your the corporate media that you watch and ask them why they refuse to cover this important issue. Tell them really they have to start doing better. They have to start working for the people of this community and of this province, and not just for the corporate owners of whichever media they belong to. So, Walter, any last words before we sign off?
Well, I wouldn't say that, when the public wants to, and they're probably watching this and really thinking about what does it mean to get engaged. Well, the first thing to do is to come out to a public meeting. We're having public meetings about every 2 or 3 weeks now. We have one planned to come up in the next couple of weeks again. Kind of keep an eye. We try to publicize it the best we can. Get educated. And once you have really studied the issue carefully and really reviewed everything that we can see, it's very easy for you to move forward from there. And it's only based upon good, sound common sense and a concern for public welfare and public health. And unfortunately, we're in this world of politics where decisions are made by governments who get elected. So let's face it, that's the thing that they really understand is they may not get elected. And we have to let them know that we're not going to vote for them if they're going to proceed with a program like this.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you for watching Face to Face.